Nigeria. It has disrupted the electoral system and has led to the postponement of elections and created uncertainties about other scheduled elections. Nigeria's election management body, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, took cognizance of these challenges and proactively responded with a new policy on conducting elections in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. This edition of Platform seeks to examine INEC's 10-point policy document for elections with particular reference to the scheduled governorship elections in Edo State, scheduled for the 19th of September 2020, and for Ondo State, scheduled for the 10th of October 2020. Our guest is Mr. Festus Okoye, INEC National Commissioner for Information and Voter Education. He is a former Executive Director, Human Rights Monitor, a barrister, and solicitor at the Supreme Court of Nigeria. Mr. Festus Okoye, welcome to Platform.
Thank you so much.
My panelist on this program is no other but Mia Ogidi, our INEC National Electoral Commission correspondent.
It's my pleasure.
Mr. Festus Okoye, welcome once again. Let's begin with the background to this INEC's 10-point agenda. What was INEC thinking and how did it come about, this 10-point agenda?
You know, on the 6th day of February 2020, the Independent National Electoral Commission released the timetable and schedule of activities for the conduct of the Edo and Ondo governorship elections. And on that 6th day of February 2020, we indicated that we are ready to conduct both elections on the 19th day of September 2020 and the 10th day of October 2020. Now, the Edo and Ondo governorship elections are the elections we call end of tenure elections. Being end of tenure, the regime or the lifespan of the incumbents terminates by a fraction of time after a period of 4 years. By section 178, subsection 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, and also section 25, subsection 7 and 8 of the Electoral Act 2010 as amended, the Independent National Electoral Commission is under an obligation, a constitutional obligation, to conduct both elections not earlier than 150 days before the tenure of the incumbent expires and not later than 30 days. So the implication is that for the Edo governorship elections, the commission must conduct that election on or before the 13th day of October 2020, and for the Ondo governorship election, we must conduct the election on or before the 25th day of January 2021. So that was the background, and we had fixed dates for these elections. Now, with the pandemic setting in, and with lockdowns and curfews being declared in so many states, and the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 and the National Center for Disease Control rolling out protocols and guidelines on behavior, on public health and public safety, it became imperative for the Commission to also reassess the way it conducts the elections in order not to endanger the health and safety of its own staff and the health and safety of the voters that will go to these two elections to go and vote. So that was the background that led to the release of this policy on conducting elections within the context of COVID-19.
Now, let's look at the key changes that may likely happen or that will affect the procedures to as you conduct elections in Ondo and in Edo,
yes,
with reference to this 10-point policy document.
Yes. Well, some of the things we have stated. One, before we begin the conduct of elections, we normally hold what we call stakeholder engagements. And some of these stakeholder engagements, we go to the states to meet with traditional rulers, we meet with religious leaders, we meet with the political parties themselves, civil society groups and organizations, and the media. Some of these engagements will no longer take place on a face-to-face basis. Some of these engagements will not take place virtually or online. So that's one of the things that we definitely changed. The second thing that we changed is that prior to this particular period, sometimes we harvest our ad hoc staff through face-to-face contact, through the National Youth Service Corps, and also we train them through a face-to-face training. That will no longer happen. So what we are going to do is that all the ad hoc staff that we are going to use in terms of NYSC and students of federal tertiary institutions will apply online, and they will also receive their letters of appointment online. We're also going to do some form of face-to-face training and also some level of online training. So we are going to do a hybrid. And then going towards the polling units, we have insisted, and we are going to insist, that any voter that comes to the polling unit without a face mask will not be allowed to vote. And we are going to input all the protocols and guidelines issued by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 and the National Center for Disease Control into the guidelines of the Independent National Electoral Commission. So we are going into this particular election with two things in mind: the health and safety of the voters, and also their right to exercise their democratic franchise.
Yeah, I think we will come to the nitty-gritty of the issues. Mayor Ogidi is itching to come in.
On the document, he said there shall be a two-tier queens system at the polling units. What does that mean?
You know, the crowd control at the polling unit has been a sore point. Sometimes people do not want to obey the security agencies at the polling units and do not want to obey the presiding officers and the assistant presiding officers. So sometimes you go to a polling unit, you see a surge, and before the security agencies can take control of the polling unit and bring some level of order, it takes time. But with COVID-19, there's what they call both social and physical distancing, and we are going to observe social and physical distancing. Now, what we intend to do is that we are going to recalibrate and redesign the polling units, and we are going to have an inner cordon of the polling unit and an outer cordon. People from the outer cordon will be led into the inner cordon in batches, so that we can still maintain the whole issue about physical distancing.
Having ascertained their health status.
Having ascertained their health status, because we are saying, all the ad hoc staff that will be engaged in this particular election will be given personal protective equipment. All the drivers that will convey ad hoc staff, all of them are going to put hand sanitizers in their vehicles, and it will be part of their contract. And all the ad hoc staff will also be given hand sanitizers and methylated spirit with which they are going to disinfect the smart card readers. And if any voter comes to the polling unit and shows signs of not being well, we are going to work with the health authorities in both states and design a protocol on how to deal with such issues in conjunction with the security agencies.
Have you thought of any likelihood of a glitch? Because when you now rub some hand sanitizers on your fingers,
yes,
and that a particular voter needed to go and print at the same time.
Well, if there's going to be what we are going to do before we get to Edo is that since this is a novel situation, this is a new challenge, we are going to do test run of what we are going to do with one of the by-elections, one of the smaller elections, so that if there are challenges with some of the procedures and processes we put in place, we can quickly correct it. And we are also going to do some level of simulation, or what you call in-house test run, before we get to Edo and Ondo. And then we are going to also work very closely with officials of the National Center for Disease Control in an advisory capacity over some of these health protocols and so on.
This simulation, will it involve the political parties, because they are the beneficiaries of the entire process?
I cannot categorically state at this moment whether it will involve them. But in the next few days, we are going to have a consultation with the political parties, where we are going to present this document to them and also get their feedback, then get their suggestions on what will happen at the polling unit and in all the processes that they will be involved in. We're also going to have a consultation with the media, with security agencies, and also with civil society groups and organizations. So we are looking at all this gamut of issues and this galaxy of people, so that at the end of the day, all of us will go into this particular election through an inclusive process, through a consultative process, and also through a process that recognizes the fact that the health and safety of the people is paramount.
So are there going to be alterations, if for instance after the consultative meetings with, will they going to make inputs that probably alter one or two parts in the document already released?
This is our policy. Some of the provisions in this policy will also be contained in the regulations, guidelines, and manuals that will be issued towards this election. So the input from political parties, civil society groups and organizations, and from the media will be harvested and also imputed into the regulations, guidelines, and manuals. Section 153 of the Electoral Act gives the Independent National Electoral Commission the power to issue regulations, guidelines, and manuals. And those guidelines and regulations and manuals we issue are part of the law. This is not a law. This is our policy. So in bringing about the regulations and the guidelines, we are going to consult them and we are going to harvest their inputs and input into the regulations and the guidelines.
Now, you've given some highlights as to the few key changes to expect. What are the specific points now? Because we have already identified the document as a 10-point policy document.
Yes.
What are the remaining policy, if you like, points that you have not highlighted?
Well, there are. You see, this involves several issues. It involves our relationship with the political parties, for instance. And if you look at the document, we have also said that under Section 87 of the Electoral Act 2010 as amended, it is the responsibility of the political parties to organize their party primaries, either through direct means or through indirect means, or through an affirmation process if there's only one candidate running for the elections. But we have also advised them that it is our responsibility to monitor their party primaries, and that in designing the conduct of their party primaries and also designing their campaigns, they must also make sure that all the protocols rolled out by the Presidential Task Force and the National Center for Disease Control and the other states are also adhered to. So we are going to monitor what the political parties do very, very critically and very closely. Now, in terms of when we get to the polling unit, after votes after casting of votes, the votes have to be taken to the what collation center, or what we call the registration area centers, and so on and so forth. We are going to provide infrared thermometers for all our staff that are going to be there, and we have also advised the political parties, based on these health concerns, only a representative one-party agent of each political party will be allowed into the collation center. If the candidate himself or herself wants to enter the collation center, no other party agent will go there. So we're also going to create this two-tier queuing system at the collation centers, at the various levels of the collation centers. We are also thinking of collapsing, so to say, some of the registration area collation centers, so that we can lessen human interference in some of these registration area centers, and then pool maybe 5, 6, 7 registration areas or wards into one particular place and do collation there, so that we can be in proper control of the situation in some of these places.
How do you make sure there is physical distance and as that process takes place?
Well, we are going to work very, very closely with the security agencies, and we're also going to work closely with the political parties, because the political parties are going to have agents at the polling units. And sometimes, from my own personal experience, as an election observer, and my experience as an election manager, sometimes it is the party agents of some of these political parties that create multiple confusion at the polling units. So we are going to make sure that we have what we call a voter code of conduct that will guide all the voters. And we're also going to design a code of conduct for party agents, because the party agents are part of the law, and the Electoral Act obligates every political party that wants to submit the list of his party agents, that each party agent's name must be submitted, photograph of the agent will be submitted, and specimen signature of the agent will be submitted. So we are going to know where each agent is, so that if any of them breaches the law or tries to disorganize the polling unit, we have a mechanism of making sure that that particular party agent is dealt with in accordance with the law. So we are going to work very, very closely with them, and we are going to remind the political parties and the security agencies that we are in a novel situation, that we are in an uncharted territory, and that if all of us cooperate and collaborate in the spirit of inclusiveness and also in the spirit of consultation, that we can pull this election through, and it will become a model for other African countries to follow.
Okay, on the party primaries in Edo, we start from the 2nd to 27th of June next month.
Yes.
And then campaigns on the 21st.
Yes.
And on the guideline, you gave them a blank check, kind of, no limit of number of people that will gather in a particular campaign and all that.
Yes.
So, and they are riding on the constitution, they have powers to campaign and all that.
Yes.
And you're also operating on the 2018 guidelines before the 2019 elections.
Yes.
So if they are to draw their strength from those documents, will you think the social distancing will be maintained during the campaigns and the party primaries? Because they have the option of either going to direct or indirect primaries.
Look, this period is a period when persons must take individual responsibility. The conduct of election is a multi-stakeholder venture. It's not just the responsibility of the Independent National Electoral Commission. The political parties are a creation of the law, and they have a responsibility to obey the law. Since the creation of the law, the federal government has rolled out protocols on social and physical distancing. The National Center for Disease Control has also rolled out their own. The various states have also rolled out their own. The political parties as legal entities have a responsibility to obey the law. If they don't obey the law, there are laws also to deal with their disrespect of the law. So we expect that they will obey the law. And we will also be there to monitor their...
I think what Mia is saying,
Yes.
the INEC should not say it expects. INEC should guide.
Yeah.
Because you are the monitors.
Yes,
You can, ab initio now, tell the political parties, go this way or that way.
No, we can advise them.
Okay.
On the issue of social distancing and the issue of obeying all the protocols and all the guidelines. But if you look at the Constitution says it is the responsibility of political parties to organize their party primaries and nominate their candidates. Whether they want to do it by direct primaries or indirect primaries is exclusively their responsibility. The only thing the law says is that they must give us 21 days notice and that we have the right to go and monitor their party primaries. He didn't say we should go and dictate to them. We should go and monitor their party primaries, and we can advise them. And we are definitely going to advise them. In terms of their campaigns, we will also monitor their campaigns. If in a state, the government has rolled out protocols saying not more than 20 people can gather in one place. If any political party breaches that part of the regulation or that part of the law, it is the responsibility of the security agencies to intervene. In that respect, the Independent National Electoral Commission has very little role to play in relation to that. But I believe that the political parties are responsible organizations and that they will obey the law, taking into consideration the fact that when they assume power, they want to govern persons who are healthy, and they wouldn't like to be going to the cemetery on a daily basis on grounds of our refusal to obey the law.
Well, you also talked in the 10-point policy document. There is an aspect that is talking about deepening technology in the electoral process,
yes.
which, by my little understanding, is a euphemism for the introduction of electronic voting. What exactly is INEC thinking?
The Commission believes that the time has come when we must deepen the use of technology in the electoral process. For each election, you can see that there has been a progression in terms of the way the Commission has been inputting the use of technology in its electoral process. We have experimented with the use of the smart card reader, and it has worked very well for us. We did the voters registration using the direct data capture machines, and it worked very well for us. Now, before this pandemic even started, the Commission had piloted the electronic collation and transmission of results in several elections. So we've been deepening the use of technology. But apparently, because of COVID-19 and also because of our own peculiar history and our peculiar environment, the Nigerian people are saying that they want technology, the use of technology, to be increased in our electoral process. So what the commission has done is that we have conducted our studies in relation to the type of technology that will suit our own environment. But what is not yet clear is, one, whether the Nigerian people want a voting machine that will be placed at the polling units and they will go and vote, or whether they want to vote using their smartphones, using their computers and laptops at home through an internet process, or whether they want a hybrid of it. So we are looking at all the gamut of all these things, because if you look at the Nigerian space, almost the major networks only cover around 60% of the Nigerian space. Yeah. So that 40%, we must account for them, because they are Nigerians and they are entitled to vote. So we are looking at all these things, and we're also looking at altering both the constitutional and legal framework of the country to bring into being deeper use of technology, because our Electoral Act is designed as an analog document. So if you want to introduce huge technology in the electoral process, you have to more or less comb every section of the Electoral Act to make sure that you don't introduce technology and then it conflicts with one other aspect of the law and then creates confusion. But we are determined to deepen the use of technology in our electoral process.
So when is INEC beginning with that deepening? Are you going to begin with introducing a bill to bring about amendments to relevant portions of the Electoral Act, and then you now introduce the electronic voting system? Or are you going to begin with stakeholder engagements and political parties, for example?
You know, the National Assembly had forwarded to the Independent National Electoral Commission a draft bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Electoral Act. Part of the provisions was for the introduction of technology in the voting process. And the Commission had also prepared its own document, which we took to Lagos, and we had a consultative meeting with the Senate Committee on INEC and the House Committee on Electoral Matters. And there's a consensus that we need to introduce technology in the voting process in Nigeria. What is remaining are just the details of the type of technology that will be introduced. But what the Commission is insisting on is that, one, yes, input the use of technology in the law, and then allow the Commission the leeway to make a determination on two things: the type of technology that will be introduced and when the technology will be introduced in the electoral process. So what is remaining is for the National Assembly to call for public hearing, and then after the public hearing, they harmonize the bills from both houses and then get the president to assent to it. So I think that we have gone very, very far. And our hope is that if we work very, very hard, by the time we are getting towards the end of 2021, when we are going to have a major election, that there's a possibility that we may use technology, appropriate technology at that point in time to do the election. But before we go in there, we have some other by-elections, and the moment we are introducing technology, we are going to use those by-elections to do test run, and then adjust as appropriate.
Okay, sir, about funding. Before the COVID-19, you have already come up with your budget for these Edo and Ondo elections.
Yes.
Now you have additions. For instance, bus will be carrying 7 instead of 14.
Yes.
Speedboats will be carrying 6 instead of 12.
Yes.
PPEs.
Yeah, and all
Yes.
and sanitizer and the rest. Will that not affect your budget, or are you going to apply for more money?
Definitely, the implication and the impact of COVID-19 is to the effect that the expenditure for conducting elections will increase, while government revenue will dwindle. So what is going to happen is for us to find a balance between remaining true to our constitutional responsibilities of conducting free, fair, and transparent elections, and also taking into consideration the fact that government resources and government revenues will decrease. So I believe that the chairman, who is the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, and the people in the finance department have to find a balance between all these things, and they are already working on it. But you see, while some costs are increasing, Some other ones are decreasing. For instance, some of the stakeholder engagements we normally do, all the national commissioners may have to go to Edo State and non-Edo State and so on and so forth. There has to be a ticket and hotel bookings. All those costs are no longer there. So the costs that are there will be the costs that will be transferred to health and welfare. So we are looking for a balance, and we are very sensitive to the fact that COVID-19 has affected the economy, and we're also going to behave as a responsible organization and take that into consideration.
Related to that issue is the rising cost of conducting frequent by-elections.
Yes.
You made reference to the fact that the by-elections that are coming, at those by-elections, you may introduce electronic voting or more, if you like, you will deepen it with more technology.
Yes.
But it appears INEC is concerned about rising costs of by-elections.
Yes.
How can you contain this in the face of dwindling revenue to the entire country?
We are going to work very closely with the National Assembly in looking at these things. Now, for instance, before, as of today, the National Assembly had declared vacancies in 2 senatorial districts in Bayelsa, declared a vacancy in a senatorial district in Plateau State, and also declared vacancy in a senatorial district in
Cross River?
No, not Cross River yet, in
Imo?
In Imo. Now, in between, a vacancy occurred in Cross River, and in between, 4 vacancies occurred in state assemblies, making it 9. So, and these are elections we just conducted. So the implication and what the commission is saying is that when we conducted by-elections in relation to previous vacancies, 90% of those by-elections were won by the political parties that won before. It was only in 10% of these situations that we had a change. So the point the commission is making is that there are some proposals on the ground. One proposal is that since votes belong to political parties, the political parties that won should be allowed to replace the candidates in the National Assembly or in the State Assembly to complete the tenure. Or we have a situation where no matter the number of by-elections that occur, the commission can be conducting by-elections once every 2 years. So we pull all of them together at the same time and do all those by-elections the same day. So there are several proposals on the ground. But the issue of by-elections, we are concerned about it because sometimes it can be a huge distraction.
But that first proposal, how democratic will it be? You're a lawyer. A situation that you are considering saying that the political party that won should just present a candidate.
I didn't give you only one proposal.
I know.
I just put 2 proposals.
Yes, I said that first one. How democratic will you say it will be if, in the long run, INEC adopts that?
Well, if it becomes the law, it becomes democratic. If the National Assembly agrees that is the way to go in order to cut costs and inputs it in the law, then it's our responsibility to implement it. If, on the other hand, the National Assembly believes that the best thing to do will still be to go back to the post despite the cost implications, but that rather than go back to the post all the time, all the by-elections should be put into a 2-year framework or a 1-year framework and conducted all at the same time, we will definitely go along with that. But the commission is concerned about it, and we believe that the National Assembly should take a second look at it. Maybe they will have a better proposal than the one we have. Who knows?
Elections are normally done between the hours of 8 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Yes.
But in this document, it's 8:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m.
Yes.
Don't you think with the new additions we're having as a result of COVID-19, the time will it be enough for after undergoing all these processes of cleaning and all that, will the 8:30 to 2:30 p.m. be enough for the electorates to cast the vote?
Yes, it will be enough. And I say it will be enough because the policy is that even if you get to 2:30 and there are people still at the polling unit, they will be allowed to vote. One thing that you must understand is that some of these polling units are in places that are unimaginable. Forget about the polling units that are in the urban centers, that are in schools, and that are in public places. There are some polling units that are inside the forest. And the presiding officers and the other poll workers and the security agencies and domestic observers and the media must come out from the forest at least before 6. So we cannot keep them too long in places that are inclement and also in places that are very, very dangerous. There are some polling units that are in the hill, there are some polling units that are in the valley, and there are some polling units that are in places that you cannot imagine. So we need to move them out from those places as quickly as possible the moment they push and to safer places. And that is why we normally want to finish everything on or before 4 so that we can do reverse logistics and get our people out of these places that can be slightly dangerous.
Okay, at a time the commission is fighting vote buying and we are facing coronavirus, the word here is palliative. How would you going to differentiate vote buying and giving of palliative at this time in these 2 states?
You mean we should go and differentiate?
Yeah, how would you identify when it is vote buying or for palliative?
Palliative is a word. Vote buying, there's nothing like vote buying in the Electoral Act. What we have in the Electoral Act is inducement. So our own concern is that do not break the law, and those offenses that we say people should not engage in are already in the Electoral Act and also in the criminal and penal laws of all the various states. So our plea is that people should not violate the sanctity of the polling units by engaging in things that are unethical or things that are illegal at the polling units. Prior to this particular period, we have recalibrated and redesigned the polling units in order to guarantee some level of secrecy. The security agencies are the polling units, and we are going to insist that if anybody violates the law at the polling units, that the person should be arrested. But if you carry a bag of rice and go and meet somebody at home before elections, and you give the person a bag of rice, the Independent National Electoral Commission has nothing to do with that. But if you bring a bag of rice to the polling unit and you are distributing at the polling unit, the presiding officer has the right to order that you should be arrested. And the security agencies also have a responsibility to arrest you if you are engaging in something that is illegal at the polling unit.
Now, as part of the philosophy surrounding the 10-point policy document,
yes,
INEC is saying that it's thinking of designating election as an essential service. At what point will that happen, and what does it really mean?
Well, we're already talking to the appropriate authorities to designate election as an essential service. For instance, the commission does not have the constitutional right to postpone the Edo and Ondo governorship elections. And if the commission does not conduct these 2 elections as at and when due, the country will slip into a constitutional crisis because on the 11th day of November 2020, the governor of Edo State and the deputy must leave office. It's not as if they are going to tender resignation to anybody. By that date,
their terms have expired.
Their terms have expired, and they will pack out from government house. So we don't want to get into a constitutional crisis. And for instance, in Edo now, we may have to pull some smart card readers from the contiguous states. We may have to pull some staff from the contiguous states. And since you have state lockdowns and also boundary challenges, we have to get a special permit to get some of our staff into these places. The National Commissioner supervising Edo State has to go to Edo State to go and supervise these elections. Some resident electoral commissioners have to go and support the resident electoral commissioner in Edo State. You understand? And they have to move from one state to the other. So we are insisting that the work we do is not an ordinary work. It's an essential work. And some of us had to even be going to the office during this lockdown period. So we are insisting that it's an essential service, and you have to designate it as an essential service, because if we don't perform, if we don't go to work, if we don't conduct this election, Nigeria will slip into a constitutional crisis.
This document is purely to address the issue of COVID-19 for now, and we don't know when COVID-19 will end.
Yeah.
Are you considering inputting some of those points in your document to the Constitution as the process is ongoing, as for the constitutional amendment?
No, the Constitution is the fundamental law of the land. It is the ground norm. You do not go and impute this type of thing into the Constitution, because the process of altering the Constitution is cumbersome. So what you do is that when you have this type of thing, since Section 160 of the Section 160 of the Constitution has given the Commission the power. Is this Section 160? I'm not too sure now. I think Section 60 has given the Commission the power to impose duty on all on authorities. And also Section 153 has given us the power to make regulations, guidelines, and manuals. It's better to leave them at the level of regulations, guidelines, and manuals, so that as circumstances change, you can quickly change them and they still become the law. But if you go and input them into the Constitution, you run into very, very serious challenges, to the extent that you must go to all the state assemblies for two-thirds.
But you can input them into your election information kits.
Yes.
Are you doing that?
Yeah, definitely, yes. We're already working on all of them.
Okay, you have to come up with VCC, that is Voter Code of Conduct.
Yes.
Will that particular document will be different from what we have already?
This is a policy. That Voter Code of Conduct will not have all this. It will just extract things from here and things from that we are going to get from the consultations we are going to have with the political parties, with civil society groups and organizations, and with the media, and input into it will be strictly Voter Code of Conduct. What should a voter do when he or she goes to the polling unit? What are the responsibilities of the voter, and what are the offenses that are in there, so that every voter who is going to the polling unit, we know that if the person goes to the polling unit and breaks the law, that the person will be proceeded against. So those are the things we're going to have in the Voter Code of Conduct. But in the guidelines and regulations, we are going to have things that we are going to use in training our ad hoc staff, in training all the other staff that are going to be in charge of conducting this particular election. And you know that for Edo elections, we are going to deploy close to 20,000 ad hoc staff, and for Ondo, we are going to deploy close to 18,000 ad hoc staff. And so these people need to know what we are doing. They need to know what the policy of the Commission is. They need to know what the regulations and guidelines are, and they need to know what is the things that are in our manuals. So that's exactly what we are going to input into all those.
Okay, for identification, the face mask, when you are about casting your ballot or clearance, you need to remove your face mask for identification.
No, we didn't say that. We are saying that, one, every voter who wants to vote and who wants to approach the polling unit must have a face mask. But the presiding officer, the assistant presiding officer too, who will be checking the voters register,
yes,
may ask you to remove your face mask to cross-check properly whether the person wearing the face mask is the same person whose picture or whose photograph is on the voters register. You know, because some people will go and dress like Labaja on the election day, and then they will be very difficult to identify. And so we don't want voter impersonation at the polling unit, because voter impersonation is a criminal offense. So it is the prerogative and the discretion of the assistant presiding officer too, to either ask you to adjust your face mask so that he or she will see you properly, or not to adjust it.
Okay, for instance, the Constitution is amended, the Electoral Act, and gives you the power to go for e-voting and e-transmission of results. Is INEC prepared for this?
We are.
All right, if you are prepared, at what point is INEC going to begin the online registration platform for accredited media organizations and journalists, particularly for Edo and Ondo election?
Any moment from now. The moment we conclude consultation with the political parties, with civil society groups and organizations, and with the media, and then we get their input, we will roll out the online platform for accreditation.
Voter registration, continual voters registration on your document said is suspended for now.
Yes.
But even before the 2019 general elections, it was suspended. And from that period up to February 27, when Nigeria recorded coronavirus, it was never continued. So what will happen to voters that just attained the age of 18 in these two states? Will they not be part of the voting process?
They may have to wait for a while. we are in a very, very dangerous situation. We are in a novel situation. We are in a territory where we don't have a precedent to draw from. And voters registration is like conducting a general election. Because while in an election, you have presiding officers. In voters registration, you are going to have registration officers, and they are going to go to the polling units to go and register, more or less register voters, or to the registration areas. We will not open a Pandora box where we are going to be endangering the health and the welfare of people of Edo and Ondo states. We want to go into these states once and pull out, and not endanger their health further. So I'm sure that the people of Edo and Ondo will understand that these are not normal situations. These are not normal times. And because these are not normal situations and normal times, we are not likely going to do any form of voters registration this time around. Because, you see, when you go in after registration, you come back with it. Then you have to print a new permanent voters cards. After you print permanent voters cards, you may have to do claims and objections. And then you come back, then you roll out the supplementary voters list. Then you integrate the supplementary voters list into the main register and then publish before handing over to the political parties. I do not think that we are primed at this point in time to sort that one out. We want to focus on the conduct of these two end of tenure elections that have some constitutional implications, and then pull out and then see whether the health authorities can contain this pandemic reasonably so that life will return to normal and then we get back to what we are doing.
Your document appears to be talking about a provision for voter election observation to be done online. How is that possible?
No, it's accreditation of election observers that will be done online. What we are saying is that prior to this particular time, some of the domestic observers take their application forms to the commission and go and submit. We are now saying that they should submit all the applications online. But in submitting these applications online, we're also going to make sure that only groups that abide by our own code of conduct and our own regulations, we get accreditation this time around. And we're also going to work with the civil society groups and organizations in making sure that we don't have a deluge of election observers at the polling units at this time around, so that we can lessen the health hazards and the health risk involved in election observation at this point in time. But we are going to accredit all the organizations that have been doing well in election observation.
INEC is also talking about reassessing existing security threats and the implications on COVID-19.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Well, we are going to do some level of mapping of the health challenges in Edo State. Map out prevalence of COVID-19 in local governments and so on and so forth. And then get the advice of health authorities both in Edo and at the national level and also in Ondo on how to manage places where the health challenges are more. And then the security agencies, we're also going to get into form of consultation and synergy with them on how to approach these health challenges, because they are human beings, they are also Nigerians, and they're also prone to being sick. So we are going to see in what ways all of us can collaborate and then run this election in a very professional manner, and also in a manner that the health of the people are preserved and not endangered.
When you say the implications on COVID-19, are you suggesting that if you do this mapping and you find out there is prevalence of COVID-19 pandemic in certain areas in Edo, for example, or in Ondo,
yes,
those areas and those populations would not take part in the election? Or?
No, we didn't say that. What we are saying is that if, for instance, we do some mapping and then we find one local government where there's prevalence, the implication is that we will move more health officials to those areas to advise us and also to assist in isolating those who are sick from going to the polling units. And then in the places where we don't have health challenges, we won't send as many health officials and as many security officers to those places. It's just do some level of mapping so that we can have an idea of the challenges that are out there and how to distribute the resources and the logistics available to those areas.
Let's go back again to the procedure and the key changes with respect to Edo and Ondo elections, because this, for now, is more pertinent.
Yes.
You said all your electoral officials will have their personal protective equipment,
yes,
and they will have sanitizers and several other things.
Yes.
What are the other key things to look forward to so that both the voters and the political parties will be well guided?
Well, we have also said that the ad hoc staff will do voluntary testing before and after. And we are saying voluntary because we do not want to get into a situation where somebody will be forced to go and do some COVID-19 testing. And then some other legal issues will crop up. So it's going to be voluntary testing before and after the elections, because we also want to make sure that people who conduct elections do not get sick, and if they get sick, that they get the best medical attention available. So that one is there. Then we said we are going to also make sure that we are provide them with hand sanitizers, and then at the local government, at the super racks and the registration area centers, the supervisors are also going to take charge of what goes on in some of these places. And where we have smaller racks, we are also going to provide canopies to make sure that social distancing is observed in all these places. So these are uncharted territories, but we are going to audit every polling unit and every registration area center and every local government area center to make sure that all these places comply with the issue of social distancing. And then if there are health challenges with some of them, we will discuss them with the appropriate authorities.
Okay, submission of candidates is to be done online.
Yes.
How secure is your ICT unit so that submission will be done by the rightful persons, especially the national chairman of the party and the secretary?
We are going to give the national chairperson and the national secretary of each political party an access code. Only the two of them are permitted to submit candidates list. No other individual can submit. Even when they were submitting manually. What happens is that the national chairman and the national secretary of the political parties give us their signatures, and then they appoint a representative who will be at the center where we collect these nomination forms. So when these forms come in, we will cross-check that it was properly signed by the national chairman and the national secretary of the political party. If we notice any discrepancy, we normally send it back. So this time around, we are talking of a governorship candidate and the deputy governorship candidate. So 2 documents will be submitted, and that is easy. So we are going to give them secure access codes through which they will submit their nominations.
And any deadline for that submission?
Oh, no, there's a deadline in the law. They know.
You tell us.
The deadline is...
29th?
No, I think it's 27th of June.
Of June?
Yes. That's when all the political parties who have finished conducting their party primary elections...
That is for Edo?
For Edo State.
Yes.
Yes. For Ondo, I think it's 25th of July.
Yes.
When they will have completed their party primary
So how many
elections.
political parties are participating after the registration in these elections?
You mean how many political parties do we have in Nigeria?
Yeah.
We have 18 political parties in Nigeria, and then I don't know the number that will participate in these 2 elections.
Okay.
Only 18?
Yes. Every other one is a political association.
Well, Mr. Festus Okoye, INEC National Commissioner for Information and Voter Education, thank you so much for coming live on NTA platform at this point in time and explaining the various nitty-gritty of the INEC's 10-point and election policy document, particularly for elections in Edo and Ondo states. It's been nice talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Mayor Ogidi, as usual, thank you so much for your insights and very thoughtful questions.
It's my pleasure.
I think we have learned a lot from your knowledge of... Exactly. In the last 50 minutes, we've been talking with Mr. Festus Okoye, a barrister at law, and INEC National Commissioner for Information and Voter Education. And our focus was COVID-19 and INEC policy document for elections in Nigeria. That's Platform. Thank you for watching. I'm Muhammad Kudu Abubakar. Bye for now.
What does scoring a football goal and mathematics have in common? In the world of Ubongo Kids, everything we do can be related to math and science. Join Kiduchu, Kibena, Koba, Amani, Baraka and their animal friends as they solve problems and go on fun learning adventures.
Don't you see it? We're going around the moon.
Watch brand new episodes of Ubongo Kids, Nigeria's favorite educational cartoon show, every Saturday at 9:30 a.m. on NTA.
The act of making something more beautiful by adding ornaments to it is also known as decoration. Today, so many men and women hardly do without decorating their events. They choose the colors and the quality of materials befitting such an event. Invited guests and groups that grace the occasion normally come in their numbers with different attires conforming to the recommended colors. This practice is an indicator of cooperation and solidarity during ceremonies and festive period. The purpose of wearing the dress can be to serve as self-identification with age mates, relations or friends during social occasions such as weddings, funerals or parties. The word Asho in Yoruba means cloth and Ebi denotes family. So, Ashobi can be described as a family cloth usually worn during parties or family ceremonies or occasions. However, others call it anko, and many adopt the white man model, which is uniform.
When it first started, it was just the headgear. All the members wearing the same color. Gradually, today, they have moved down even to the dress and the handbag. Handbag to match and even shoes.
The question then is, how do we practice in our own locality in Benue State?
Because of our association with the outside world, our people are bringing it and introducing it now in Benue State.
They use it in order to make their events colorful. Almost all the Tiv traditional marriages, you see them making black and white ashobi. So for the Ido Mass, it's red and black. Then the Igede is blue and black on the traditional marriages, and even on the white weddings, they use black and white.
How do you feel when your event is accentuated with different colorful attires?
So much excited because I will know that at least I have a group, as in people that have identified with me on my day.
I will be so excited, so joyous inside me. I will know that yes. So people, everybody will know that yes.